Hello, this is Tim at lovechangegrow.com, and this week's post and video is a presentation on de-escalation. I've been asked a few times how to de-escalate situations. So the goal of this de-escalation presentation is for you to have a map from being anxious and overwhelmed to having a mindset, a strategy, skills for a calm, controlled, and contained, non-physical, non-violent resolution. So the main points in this presentation is going to be mindset, concepts, strategies, techniques, debriefing, and some other notes. So let's jump right into it. There is a lot to focus on and to learn about how to deal with irate, violent, disorganized, psychotic, drug-affected folks. Whether you're a business owner, excuse me, line staff, office receptionist, a waiter or waitress, hospital employee, law enforcement, or some service sector such as a teacher, and perhaps even a parent. The presentation is based on basically on my much of my experience, education, and just from my mental health career, which ended up being mainly on the crisis end of things. So I was only been mildly assaulted twice in my mental health career, which is kind of unusual. But and it was because I wasn't paying attention. But I've been involved in, I don't know, 100 plus actual physical takedowns and restraints when I was working primarily in the hospital. But certainly the majority has been verbal de-escalation, no physical interaction, and I think that is the way to go, if at all possible. So this presentation is really focused on non-violent, non-physical types of de-escalation of folks who are having a difficult time. So the intent, again, is just to provide some thoughts and some concepts for your consideration in dealing with folks that perhaps are not very happy. So let's start off with mindset. It begins with you, but it is not about you. So you need to understand that's the situation. But what it is about is how you handle the interaction, how you present yourself, and how you communicate and deal with folks. And the primary goal is just to remain calm, and you may, the essential recognition is that you can't control another person, but you can control yourself and try to control yourself in a way that's purposeful, that's going to get you to the goal, which is a calm and peaceful resolution. So in that, you got to really ask yourself, and if you're working with a business or as a waitress or whatever, you really need to kind of have a clear idea what is your role, because law enforcement is going to be a different role. A ER doc is going to be a different role. And even a therapist is a different role. So you need to have some clarity about what is your role, and with that, what is your purpose? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to calm a person that is hungry, or is it you're working in the ER and somebody's intoxicated and just creating a mess? Or are you a business owner trying to balance, hey, I need to figure out something to do with this irate person, yet not make it too much of a problem for my customers who may be in the shop? So, and then the third thing is, do you need to get some kind of support? Whether that is on one end, perhaps calling the police, or this is also a form of support, just becoming a little bit better familiar with, hey, where do I want to go? What do I have available to me in this role to kind of try to help resolve something so it just doesn't blow up and hit the fan. Um, so that's kind of the general role piece, but more specifically, you can divide up roles as the leader, the director, and the support folks. Let me back up just a minute. If you're a business owner or in an agency or something, it's really good to develop some kind of code or a safe word or alert word where you can in a very subtle or more subtle way cue people into, hey, I need some help here, and then have an idea of who does what, when, and how. So like in hospitals, the usual code is code Armstrong. And so they'll go paging Dr. Armstrong or something like that, and that's the code. Um, and but it's important to have one of those, and then have an idea of what that means, who does what, how does that work. So let's say you have the person, you're dealing with the person. Now, the role is the leader. And there's the leader, the director, and the support roles. So the leader is really the person who is directly talking with the person that's upset or whatever. And it's important to if you're the first one talking with the person and you're feeling really uncomfortable, you can easily hand it off to another person and say, hey, look, I have to go do something or whatever, but here's Bill, and Bill will take care of you. Hey, Bill, step in here, and this is Jim who, and Jim just steps in. And it's important that the leader has the space and the respect and to go and the ability to focus on, I'm dealing with this person. So the rest of the folks, whether you're the director role or the other support role, they're not interrupting that interaction, that communication between uh, the leader and the client or the patron. um, and that person really has to be able to let go of all the other stuff, because you have the director, which I'll get into, and the support people. They're doing their thing, but the leader is actually the person talking and interacting with the disgruntled uh, customer or even employee, whatever. Um, so that's the primary role of the leader. The director then in the background directs traffic. Maybe they're getting other patrons out of the way. Maybe they're directing another employee to call the police. Getting folks to kind of clear the room. So the director is saying, hey, let's clear the room here, get folks away, or that kind of thing. So that's the purpose of the director. And then the support folks are the other folks that are taking care of tasks. It may be moving chairs or tables out of the way. It may be opening doors or closing doors or limiting and directing traffic so that bystanders and things like that, or people go, oh, no, we don't want you involved. Okay. So supporters can also look at, use the environment, be aware of the environment, can really structure and support the intervention, the peaceful resolution or not. We'll get to some of this later in the debriefing piece, but it's always a good thing to, if you're a business owner or agency, hey, let's get together and talk about this as a team. because it's going to invariably it will happen. And so if folks have a better idea, you may want, in certainly in ERs and hospitals and law enforcement that deal with a lot of irate folks, out of control folks, they practice this and stuff like that. So it's I encourage that to happen. So the other part of mindset is, let me scroll up my notes here, is that it's a challenge, but it's doable. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. But you have to be of several minds. The first, most everybody understands you got to be able to attend to the crisis that's in your face, meaning the leader in a way. But, going, what is happening? Why is it happening? And all that. And so that's the primary thing. From my face to your face, we're dealing with this. But at another level, I have to also kind of split off and be aware of what is the larger context of the situation. Are there other risk, liabilities? Do I need to try to, get the director to take over some of these tasks and call the police or call the medics or things like that, or get other patrons out of the way? And so there's that, just attending to that. And then the other piece of being mindful is, how am I interacting and presenting? So you want a piece of you standing out here and looking at yourself and go, well, how does this look? Is this purposeful? Am I acting in a way that is going to move the situation towards calm resolution? Okay. And with that, being mindful of my behaviors in addressing this outrageous situation is, how do I sort of view the situation, and where do I want to go, and what are the steps to get there? So it's kind of like, how do I position what I do to lead towards that resolution? And that's, what I kind of call leverage. And the other thing is, when you're looking at how you're interacting, is this respectful? If I were in the other person's shoes, if I were the irate person, is this how I would want to be interacted with? Is it respectful, perhaps compassionate, and taking account into being in the other person's shoes? Now, a lot of times, mindfulness is what and you'll hear me talking about mindfulness throughout this whole my whole purpose of being here. And basically, it can be broken down to this: is breathing well, being non-judgmental, non-attached to the outcome, so that you're able to step into, be open, and abide in the flow. And that is basically the essential of being mindful. And when you're dealing with a crisis situation or an escalated situation, you have to kind of go, okay, I'm just going to deal with this, and I got to breathe, okay? And breathing is certainly nice deep breaths and stuff. So I think you get this. So moving down on to where am I? Okay, concepts. So the big concept here is that a crisis situation or escalated situation, an escalated person, doesn't just happen. There are precursors and things leading up to this display of outrageous or out of control behavior. And it happens in a cycle. There's a beginning, the middle, and closing phases of of the crisis or out of control thing, but there's also a beginning, middle, and closing phases of the interactions. And so you can sort of think of the cycle as, there's something that's leading up to the breakdown. And when the breakdown happens, ideally, you can abide in that kind of hitting the fan and not freak out. So you realize that eventually it breaks open, and in that space where things are kind of going to crap, you can also see that, hey, we have an opportunity to break through. So that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it as a lot of times people go, oh, here's the outrageous behavior. Well, it started someplace, okay? And now you're having the outrageous behavior. It's actually releasing energy, releasing frustration, anger, and rage. And as long as nobody's getting hurt, okay, there's no blood and guts on the wall, that's okay. The person can scream and yell. In some, certainly in hospital things, if the person's throwing chairs and stuff, yeah, we don't like that. But, at least nobody's getting hurt, hopefully. So that's a release of energy, and just recognizing, oh, the yelling and screaming, gnashing of teeth is releasing energy. That's okay. Because if you don't allow that to happen, what happens? It just builds up more pressure. So, in that releasing of energy, in a sense, you're holding space for the person, clearing out a space, making space for that to happen, and realize it's just releasing energy. It's releasing expression, the outburst. And so, holding that space, at some point, that release of energy is just kind of like an explosion. It doesn't last that long, usually, unless maybe somebody's under some pretty big time, maybe methamphetamine or something like that, or some other drug, or there's just some other thing that's going on. And realize the release of energy can be really short term, or it could last a while. Let's say 20 minutes. Outward, maybe 45 minutes, but generally it's a pretty short term thing. 10, 20 minutes is probably the usual. And so you just hang out there. And I'll give you some ideas of how to work with that. So then after the outburst, then you have the opportunity for resolution. But if you don't move towards resolution, then it's not resolved, and it becomes sort of a recovery time for the person. And then eventually you have the buildup of stress or pressure, and then it blows up again. So it just repeats and repeats and repeats. And that's what you want to try to avoid here, because you have an opportunity to move towards some resolution and hopefully interrupt that cycle of repeating the escalated, out of control crisis behavior. So realize a lot of times folks get trapped into thinking, oh, I got to control the situation. That's one way to do it. Now, and certainly a lot of thought is about, oh, I got to control the situation. Well, when you really think about it, it's really hard to control the situation, because the real point is you may not be able to control all the pieces and the precursors, but you can control how you respond. And so the response is, in some ways, is is containing the situation, not controlling it, just containing it. Now, sometimes you, by containing it, you say, hey, Joe, I see you're upset, let's go talk. And so you might move them to a more private or out of the way place. Other times, it's like, hey, this is pretty wild. Let's just stay here and let's move the other folks away so they're safe, the other patrons or other staff, and so we'll contain it where it's happening. And so, you got to use your own good judgment of what you can handle or not handle, getting supports and stuff like that. And that's the whole director and support kind of roles. But the great thing about containment is it's not control. So you have some wiggle room. So you can allow for the breakdown and the break open. And it's the opportunity of really being able to, as a staff person or as a person that's kind of, oh my gosh, here, I'm the leader here. So you have an opportunity to abide and hang in with this kind of outrageous space with the client. And this space here, which, in the therapeutic kind of language is creating sacred space, this space is where the empathic leverage is developed. And so we'll get back to this pretty quickly, but the empathic leverage is sort of this positioning for leverage. And there's a post called the empathic gift or something. It's under the mental health section. It's one of the first posts with that. You can find that. But we're talking really about the same thing. And whether you're a reception or something like that, if you kind of expect and anticipate, oh, here's a person kind of breaking open. Okay, let's just hang in there with them. They're just frustrated or in pain or angry about something, or they're hungry. Okay, I can deal with that kind of thing. But you're going to use that later, and it's going to become useful in the future when you're dealing with this person again. So, on to the next piece is you can look at this in different ways. One is the push-pull, and like when I do involuntary, or when I did involuntary mental health evaluations, I would do the push. I would push at people and back them right into the corner, mentally or psychologically, and say, hey, look, pay attention. I'm reading your rights. This is a serious matter. And you could see this. People just go, whoa, and back into the corner when I read them their rights. And then the pull is, then I go, hey, what's up? And so it's sort of this push-pull. And so when you push a person back in the corner and then you step back, well, then the person goes, oh, what's happening? But I've seen a lot of folks, they just do the push. Let's push the person into the corner. Let's just keep on hammering. And that's more of a interrogation type of technique. But you're just pushing. My style was more of let's do a quick push-pull, back out. So in pulling out, I'm kind of creating a vacuum for them then to work themselves out of the corner. So another way to look at this is herding versus leading. So let's take the example of a sheepdog, a little cattle dog or something like that. So herding is basically the dog is creating a place that's uncomfortable for the sheep or the cow to be at. So it's barking, it's nipping at its heels and stuff like that, and getting them to move. Okay, but basically it is hurting is you're making it uncomfortable where you don't want the person to be, and allowing the person to be comfortable as where you want them to go. So um, if you're in a room for the most part, and um, a lot of places, agencies, hospitals call this um, um, a show of support, not a show of force. It used to be called a show of force, but a show of support. So basically, the team physically says, kind of positions themselves and say, no, you can't go over here. But we're leaving, instead of surrounding them, we're surrounding a half circle here where we don't want them to go, and they can go over here where it's open. So that kind of even physical kind of way of working with people is a way to figure that out. You always, pretty much always want to give a person a choice. Hey, this is a forced choice. You're getting your medications, so how do you want it, your medications? You want it um, um, with an IM, a shot that's holding you down, or hey, how about you just taking some medications here to calm down? So in any kind of escalated situation, there's always choice, and so you want to be mindful of what choices and what can you make happen versus let's invite the person to make a good choice. But you can't give folks a whole range of choices. You want to focus that down into being able to do sort of, let's have two choices. Okay, here's the two choices, this or that. And so you want one to be kind of the bad cop, the other to be the good cop kind of thing. That's the basic, same premise kind of thing. And ideally, when folks are kind of contained in that forced choice or limited choice kind of thing, most people go, "Oh, I'd rather do the less the easier." So containment versus control, physical takedowns and restraints or forced medication is a control kind of mechanism. You can still, contain a person perhaps in their room or their office or something like that. Offer them some other way to manage, and you get to the same place. Um, the difference is you don't have risk, physical risk of injury to the other person or yourself or other team members kind of thing. Oftentimes, you don't have the risk of property damage or windows being broken, furniture thrown, and stuff like that. Um, let's see. So, um, hurting. So here's the thing about hurting. Hurting is about chasing the person around versus leading. And ideally, you want to be in a position to lead. And how you make that happen is by that empathic leveraging. You know, if you spend the time and listen to what's going on, my favorite thing is, hey, what's up? You know, and the person may, hopefully they'll engage at some point within a few minutes. You may have to be quiet for 30 seconds or a couple minutes, but usually folks will tell you what's going on. I'm hungry, I'm in pain, I'm disappointed, I'm going through all the stress with a spouse or a breakup of a relationship or, a job loss or bankruptcy or whatever. People will tell you what's going on. And when you're able to hang in that space with the person and they can share their experience, now, then you're developing what I call therapeutic leverage, but it's really empathic leverage. So if they understand they can act outrageous, but you're listening to them in a respectful, compassionate, graceful way, they're gonna go, oh well, you're not such a bad guy after all. You're hanging in there with me. You're understanding what's going on. You're not overreacting. You're not trying to control me, and that really then um, sets you up for you being able to lead them. They are going to start to trust you, realize that you're not the bad person. They'll start to realize, geez, I'm kind of out of control here. I better settle down. And that kind of awareness for the person really helps them in the future. So let's move on to the next piece, is the situational awareness. So you have to be situationally aware. So this is basic, like CPR kind of thing. Stop, look around, listen, figure out what is exactly happening, what can be done, and what can you do. So, responding to a cardiac arrest is different than responding to a fire, different than responding to an escalated person that's intoxicated, or a person that's just kind of hungry and they're irate and they feel like nobody's helping them. Those are completely different situations. So you want to stop, look, and listen and figure out exactly what's happening, seeing what needs to happen, what supports can be in place, how can they be accessed, are they available, and do you have one of those little codes to help deal with the situation. So the empathic leverage or empathic listening is, the reason for that is you're trying to get at, why is this happening? Are they in pain? Are they angry, frustrated, loss of hope, fearful, anxious, disorganized, under the influence? And the why is important, but your view, my view of the situation, your view of the situation is just a hypothesis. And so you need to hang in that empathic space for them, that sacred space with them, because eventually they're going to tell you how they feel and why is it happening for them. And that's going to be really important, because then they're telling you what their subjective experience is. And that's more important to figure that out than to have your hypothesis. Now, you can have both, okay? And ultimately, you'll probably have both, but that gives you understanding their subjective experience is going to get at the underlying dynamic, or what's driving their behavior. Now, you always want to also be kind of open to changing your hypothesis, because if you allow that space to happen, the client is going to tell you why it's happening, at least from their perspective. And from there, having an understanding of that subjective experience for them, their reason or interpretation, gives you insight that will guide you to perhaps offering a solution or a resolution to their how they feel about their situation. And if the irritated person feels like you understand them, then they're going to be much more open to your suggestions. Now, if you haven't created that relationship, getting them to do something is going to be quite difficult. But if you spent the time in doing this, they're likely going to, see your logic, see, oh, geez, yeah, I understand. Okay, I'll take some medications, or yeah, I'm outrageous. Okay, yeah, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to the ER. And so if you're offering um, remedies or solutions that you as a law enforcement, a hospital employee, or receptionist, or business owner can live with, it's really turns out much better. So in the back of your mind, another way to look at this is, what hill do you want to die on, kind of thing. Da, da, da. So it's also, again, just being patient, open, non-judgmental, empathic. Let's see. So the thing of it is if you proceed with your hypothesis, oftentimes what ends up happening is you end up chasing your own tail. You're looking for that leverage, but you're not finding it because it's your leverage. It's not what is going to be important or salient to the client, or the person that's having some problems here. And so if you're chasing your own hypothesis and not understanding their situation, their dynamics, and why, and their subjective experience, and their rationale, the client is going to be more frustrated. They're going to feel like, hey, who is this SOB that's not even listening to me, doesn't understand my situation and stuff. And so they're not going to be open to your suggestions. They're not going to follow your directions. They're generally not going to cooperate. And so that escalates things. So escalates the situations, escalates their behavior. You're losing control. You're not containing the whole thing, and it's going to crap. So that is where you want to kind of get to, and that's where the opportunity is to then start leading the person out of their escalated state, and then they're beginning to see, oh, I can resolve this, and live with a better thing. So on to techniques of interaction and communication. So as we all know, nonverbal is the majority of communication. So it's positioning, posture, eye contact, and I also say breathing. And so generally you can look at it. Are you relaxed and confident? Or if you're anxious, you're going to tend to over respond, be more domineering and hyper vigilant than you need to be, just because you're anticipating, you're anxious, you're fearful. And so those are just two different aspects. So I just encourage people, kind of understand the situation, just relax into it and be confident to it. Now, I've done this for years, so I'm pretty, I can just go right in there. So if this is new to you or uncomfortable to you, hopefully somebody on your team or in your business is more has some more propensity or skills or experience, and so they're going to be the person that you want to, hopefully they'll step into that lead position and talk with the person. Let's see. So the other thing is, I see a lot of times is a lack of respecting the person's personal space, and so I think things happen much better when you respect the person's physical space. So there's that whole interactive personal bubble kind of experiment. You get it too close to each other and you feel a little uncomfortable. You back out a little ways, or say stop, and you can maintain a much more comfortable space. So I certainly encourage that being a basic thing. Respect the person's personal space, and And even though you may have a different amount of space and can maintain something closer, a lot of times when folks um, aren't doing well, they want more space. So, you know, it's okay to stop at the 10-foot level and say, "Hey, what's up? How are you doing? You know, you look like things aren't working well." And if they're engaging with you at 10 feet, great. There's no reason to get into 4-foot space or 3-foot space where you can get assaulted. Um, the other thing is when another person touches somebody, that can either mean, oh, intimacy, or that can mean control. So, if you're touching somebody that doesn't want to be touched, that is violating personal space. And that if you can touch a person, you're within their bubble and they can swing around and hit you. So, I've done quite a bit of training with people that just don't realize, hey, respect the person's space. And that's also true with animals. So if you see an injured animal, they got hit by a car or fell out of a tree or something like that, and you run up there and start fondling over them, man, you are at risk for getting bit, hit, punched. Same goes with people, you know. I think one of the best things you can do is kind of stop, look, and listen, and interact with them verbally and say, "Hey, take it easy. Just lie there. It's okay. I know you're hurting. Just let's breathe. Let's slow down that breath. You know, and that is generally what you want to do, even with a irate person. Okay, so the verbal communication can punctuate or reinforce the nonverbal, your nonverbal kind of style, but it has to align or be congruent. Because if your nonverbal communication is saying, "Oh, I'm anxious," or "I need to control this situation," but your tone is like, "Oh, let's just be peaceful and breathe and stuff," that's incongruent. It's not going to work. So you want to have your nonverbal and your verbal match. And if it doesn't match, your nonverbal is going to be what the person reads off, what they interpret. So the whole thing about voice and tone is your feeling. And that's the way to access that tone, because if you're feeling anxious, your tone is going to come off as anxious. You're going to speak at a higher rate, a little bit louder. Your rhythm or cadence of how you're speaking is going to be a little bit quicker, or it could be kind of slow and latent, and you go, "Oh my, I don't know, what should I say?" kind of thing. So, your verbal communication is really about feeling. How are you feeling in this situation? So, I think you get that. The other thing is, when you're dealing with somebody that's escalated or out of control, you want to be more purposeful. Use a little bit longer pauses and silence. Ask for and kind of slow things down, because if you speed things up or match what their behavior is, you're basically escalating the whole thing. So what you want to do is bring it down. So they're up here, chatting away or whatever, and you kind of slowly ratchet it down. They're going to follow you, and that's where you can use some silence, pausing, slowing down your cadence or rhythm of the interaction. So you're kind of moving the space from an agitated space down to a more calm and purposeful space. So just a reminder, feelings are how you set your tone. So if you're calm, so here's an idea here. Competence is generally seen, and confidence is pretty quiet. When a person is confident, they don't have to yell and shout. They can actually slow their speaking down and say, hey, look, bud, I know things look pretty bad right now, or I can see that you're in pain, or you're feeling hopeless. That's okay. Let's figure this out. And so that's a whole different way. So in that, the person is going to feel like, oh, here's a person that is confident. They're not getting scared off. They're being able to maintain a more calm space. Their voice is matching their nonverbal posturing, eye contact, and breathing. And so you're going to come off as oh, okay, hey, this person knows what they're doing. Okay, so then the other point in communication is content. What are you doing? What are you saying to the person? Are you saying, hey, sit down? Or are you going, hey, what's up? you know, what's happening? What would you like? Doesn't mean I can give it to you, but what would you like to have happen here? What do you need? And then if you have that empathic sort of leverage, then they're going to be open to suggestions and more open to questions. And so I like to do suggestions as, I wonder, have you thought about how would you feel if, have you ever tried? Those kind of questions, because you're not telling the person, you're inviting them. And in that invitation, you're kind of leading them from this place of escalation or crisis to, hey, let's figure this out together. And so the other aspect of this is time. And so de-escalation takes time. It's I think, you just got to be mindful of time and how you position and create this space, because listening deeply, establishing that empathic leverage, and being mindful takes some time and space. And if you're in a hurry and saying, hey, I got to do this, I got 50 other things, I'm supposed to be at a meeting 15 minutes ago, come on, let's make something happen. In my experience, if I'm in this rushed, pressured space, I'm shooting myself in the foot because the client or the person isn't going to follow. I'm not making that connection. And when it gets down to it, you got to realize you're working a process. It's not a crisis event. Yes, the crisis event is seemingly in your face, but you're realizing you're working a process of de-escalation. So in the end, it's like, if you're going to end up someplace. So where do you want to end up? Do you want to end up with 2 hours of paperwork documenting, covering your rear end, detailing all the events of the crisis and how you responded appropriately and all this stuff? Or do you want to step in the space, resolve the crisis, and you still may be at an hour, half, or 2 hours at the end, but at the end, you can make a quick summary note that takes you 15 minutes to do, and you go home. Or you may be able to say, okay, we're doing this, but you got 2 hours of paperwork to do. So that's that piece. So moving on to debriefing. So way back in my early career at a state mental health hospital and admissions unit, we did debriefing all the time for a lot of things, and it takes really in any kind of takedown or restraint, seclusion, or show of support kind of thing. Um, if you're working in a team or have a business and you have this kind of escalated kind of crisis behavior, out of control behavior happen, you want to get good at it. You want to get good at what you can do, because ultimately it's going to be more efficient. People are going to be more safe. They're going to feel more confident and competent. So I really stress, it can take 10 minutes, which is small amount of time, 10 minutes to do a debriefing. And basically the question is, the purpose is to learn, to improve, and to have better teamwork. So the first question is, what went well in this? And so you want to point out, hey, and each person, say if you have a team of 4 people that were involved, your leader, your director, and a couple support people, it's important to take a few minutes and say, what went well? Okay, Susie, what do you think went well? Joe, what do you think went well? Um, Ryan, what did you think went well? Sarah, what went well? Do a quick little round robin of that. And then the next question, what didn't go well? And so you need to establish, well, this isn't a good or bad. This is, hey, let's just make this so we can work together better, understand what's going on. So what didn't go well? So, geez, I could have cleared out, the reception area, or, I should have called support, called law enforcement, or gotten another therapist involved, or the person's therapist, that kind of thing. And so then the third question is what can we improve? How can we do it better next time in a similar situation? And so then what you're really doing is reinforcing a positive team relationship as a learning opportunity. And as you do this more and more, the team becomes more competent. And in that competence comes confidence. And so then one of the things you learn is that hopefully you start to go, hey, this situation looks like it could blow up. Let's go fix this before it blows up. And so back in my early career at the state hospital, when I first started working, we would sometimes do 4 and 5 takedowns in an 8-hour evening shift. It was like rodeo time. But by the time I left the state hospital at about 5 years or so, we were able to reduce our number of takedowns for all shifts to maybe 1 a week or 1 every 2 weeks or so. We just got good at reading the situation and recognizing those early signs and symptoms. So instead of waiting for the freight train to come in and slam into the station, you go, oh my gosh, we got to deal with it. We go, hey, here comes this train. It's moving a little too fast. Let's go out here and deal with it. Let's offer medications. Let's say, hey, let's go for a walk. Hey, Joe, it looks like, things aren't working too well for you. You look a little anxious or pissed off. Yeah, let's go play some pool or ping pong. And, you end up talking about things and stuff like that. So you avoid the train slamming into the station, or at least slowing it way down so it becomes a nothing burger. And that's where you want to end up as a team, of being able to have some foresight, sort of looking at those precursors of things that are sort of developing out there here in the future. Well, let's go out there and meet them so we can resolve them before they happen. Now, the whole thing about that is, if you have a regular customer or a regular client and they experience that, they're going to experience that you are a confident and competent professional. And with you, they're going to go, geez, I don't need to, blow up and go there with Tim because he understands me. And so they're much more open to share what's going on with you. And they've had the experience that, hey, I don't need to cause a commotion to make something happen. I'm just going to go say, hey, Tim, I'm having some issues here. Let's talk, let's figure this out, because you have demonstrated your ability to do that. Now, whether you're a receptionist or a waitress, and the person ends up being a regular at the coffee shop, yeah, there are times and you'll need to create some boundaries, some expectations, but you can often learn how to figure out how to position yourself where that doesn't become an issue, kind of thing. Sometimes at first they'll want to test you and say, man, is this for real? So I usually start with what's up, that whole thing, back them in the corner. But if you don't need to do that, with that, you can just, hey Joe, what's up? It looks like you're feeling a little anxious, a little worked up. What's going on? And you invite them to tell your story. And so remember, confidence is quiet, and competence is generally unseen. People go, oh man, how does that person work with this person? It seems magical. Well, it's not magical. It takes some work and some understanding, and that's what I've tried to present here. Generally, learning to figure out this is what escalation is, why it happens, and here's strategies and techniques to work with it. Then you're not anxious. It doesn't become this disorganized, hitting the fan kind of thing. It's like, okay, we'll deal with this. So a couple of little things that I've discovered, and this is, I think, based in communications knowledge, is one of this thing is when I work with people in that are highly agitated, I'm looking at, boy, how can I visualize this or envision this as compassionate and graceful? So the whole idea of control is not in my mind. I'm not going there because I know it doesn't work. So it's like, hey, I want to understand and be graceful and respect this person. And so that kind of, I think, sets you up for much more likely to have a successful resolution instead of it blowing up in your face. The other thing is, a lot of times is when here you have your agitated person, here's me or the staff person, you're doing a confrontation kind of thing. So you're face to face kind of thing like that. But then, you want to get off to the side, 45 degrees, 90 degrees, and eventually 180 degrees. And by that subtle positioning, physical positioning, when you're face to face, you're oppositional. When you're at 45 or 90 degrees, 45 degrees kind of thing, you're kind of like in a support. You've moved around to a bit of the side. So whatever they're throwing at you is passing you by. It's not hitting you in the face. So you're standing off to the side, you're supporting. You're kind of leaning into abiding in that space. And eventually you want to move around so that you're side by side. And so then the issue's out here in front. The client is looking at the issue, and you've come up alongside of them, and you're both looking at that issue. And so it's a much more of a collaborative kind of position. So that's what I mean by kind of being circle positioning. So you want to go from the 180 degrees and get over to this 180 degrees. Um, and then, in that you're gradually moving to being open and inviting, and then as collaboratively you're kind of leading the person. You're going to kind of saying, well, let's go over here. Oh, okay, we're going over here, over here, over here. And so that's what I mean by leading, kind of thing. It's not, oh, grabbing a rope, roping them and saying, come over here. So the other thing is, this is a very kind of subtle technique, really effective, is when a person's like this, you're face to face, oftentimes an agitated person is breathing up here. And so a really cool technique is to breathe with them, match them, okay? Wherever they're breathing, their rate of breathing, kind of ease into that and match their breathing patterns. Where they're breathing, and they're usually in their chest up here, because it's the fight, flight, or freeze kind of response. And so match their breathing, but then when you match it, just match it for a little bit, but then start ratcheting down your rate, your pattern, so it becomes more and more calm. And you'll figure out that people kind of match that, because so then as you start to drop down your breathing, they'll start to follow you. And so that's a really subtle kind of thing, but it works. I've had it work, and once I discovered that, so you're basically syncing and leading the breath. And once you kind of get their breath, so they're taking nice, calm, full breaths, using their diaphragm or their abdomen, breathing nice and slow, then that they're open. And you can start to really work and start to be more collaborative with the person. And that takes some time. You can't force a person to go there, but you can lead a person to go there. So collaborative. So the other thing is, no matter what kind of interaction you have, if it ends up being takedowns and restraints and stuff, you always want to say thank you. Hey, Joe, I know it's been tough, but thanks for hanging in there with us. Thanks, I know we didn't want to go here, but you're fine. We're fine. We really, appreciate, you know, what we can do. And so you always want to kind of, empower them. Go, Joe, I knew we could get this done. Thanks for your work. Great work. Kind of thing. So no matter what you do, you always want to give that client or that customer, when you can get to that collaborative kind of thing, and de-escalate them, thank them. Even though you might have done most of the work, they followed you there. Thank them just say thanks. So to end this, we're just a little over the hour. Is just realize you got to establish a relationship, because because if you establish the relationship, you have that empathic leverage to work with, and you can lead them. And if you're not able to establish that relationship, you are left trying to contain them, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's if you don't have the relationship, you have a very you can ask folks to do things, and they're likely gonna go, hey, screw you. You don't understand my situation. You don't respect me. You're kind of you're trying to control me. And so it's not about control of the client or the customer. it's about maintaining control of yourself and being mindful of how you interact with a purpose of trying to get to a position where you're not having a violent or interaction or takedown kind of thing, where you're moving towards, hey, let's resolve this with some respectful kind of agreements, kind of things. And so if a person experiences that, they're going to be much more respectful of you and your relationship. And a lot of times they're not going to want to put that relationship in jeopardy. And realize you can start working that relationship. You don't have to have a crisis to do that. Just realize, hey, this is another human being that may be having some difficult time, and you can start to work from there. And if you're a customer, I mean, a business owner or something like that, and that's great sales. That's really great sales. It's like, hey, what do you need? What can we do to help? Kind of thing. It's the same thing. This isn't something new, or anything like that. It's just understanding the relationship. So I'll end it here. Thanks, and if you have any questions, post them in the comments or whatever, or email me. I love feedback. Anyway, thanks, and have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Love you. Bye.